You know, the tomb in the garden wasn't the first time things came to a seeming end. But ever since the beginning, God's people have been well acquainted with endings. In Genesis 7, just 6 chapters after God made it all, God sent a flood that seemed to end it all. Genesis 11, Abraham and Sarah were nearly 100 years old and still had no children. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers and thrown in prison. The Hebrew people were enslaved in Egypt for hundreds of years, and even when they were set free, the Egyptians pursued them to the banks of the Red Sea, where they were cornered, stuck, surrounded, no way out. Before their freedom could even begin, things were coming yet again to an end. Day after day, the Israelites marched around Jericho, and the city wouldn't fall. Jonah was in the belly of the fish. Daniel was in the lion's den. His friends were in the furnace. The disciples were in the storm. The paralyzed man was infirmed, and Jesus was in the grave. All endings. Or so it seemed. Or were these really just the first halves of stories that were waiting to be redeemed? You see, stick around long enough and you'll see that often what seems like the end is exactly the moment where God shows up and makes things begin again, because the flood wasn't final, just a setup for new creation. Abraham and Sarah weren't done. They became the parents of a generation. Joseph was lifted from prison and given a new station. And the story of God's people, it's the story of liberation, because the Hebrews were set free when that Red Sea parted. Their seeming ending, that was God just getting started, because the walls of Jericho fell. The fish got indigestion and the lions were tamed. God met them in the fire. God walked on the storm. The paralyzed man walked with his mat, and Jesus walked out of the grave. So when you say you've come to an end, God says, guess what? It's time to begin again. When you think it's over and death has arrived, God looks death in the face and says, death,